Evening, my friends. How are we? Welcome to tonight's presentation on overcoming narcissistic abuse. We know it is not easy. It is far from easy out there. And if you're caught in such a situation, you need to know that you are not alone. You are not a fool. You are not an idiot. All the names that you might say to yourself. You are not those things. You are caught up in a very, very tricky dynamic. And actually, often you may need professional help to assist you. Narcissistic abuse is far from easy, and many people are suffering alone. It has tremendous impact on our well-being, on our physical health, on our life, careers, the whole shaboodle. And it's one of the reasons why I'm passionate about helping people to understand the situations that they are in so that they can begin to take informed steps to change their life. Because I tell you, you are not alone. So what enables me to speak with such passion about these topics? Well, I think firstly, I write about narcissism. It's an area of my practice I'm fascinated in. If you want to check out any of my books, feel free to go to the website, or you can find them on Amazon. These are workbooks encouraging you to start to get to thinking about your situation. One of my favorites is Why Love Hurts. If you've struggled and you battle and you keep going around in vicious cycles, it could be incredibly important for you to begin to take those steps. Now, if you do have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat and I will get to those at the end. If I don't have the time to, then I'll do some videos on those topics. You can find those on my YouTube channel or any of my other social media platforms. So welcome once again. You are not alone. And additionally, what qualifies me is I have most definitely been there. And I think often, it's not always true, but I find that sometimes only people who've gone through it get it. And I've definitely got it. And I got it in my really young years, early 20s. And it was a very difficult situation. And I knew it was either going to make me or break me. I think the fighter in me decided that I needed to understand and learn about this. At the time, I was in my 20s. I was working at IKEA on the tills. Can you leave your yellow bag behind, please? That was me. And I began reading self-help material when I found myself in a very difficult one-way relationship. Some 10 years on, I ended up qualifying as a psychotherapist here. And here's me with my family celebrating that victory. In 2012, I started my own practice, passionate about helping people like me who fell in love, ended up in a very toxic, damaging relationship, and was unsure about how to get out. People, you are not alone. This is more common than you think. And one of the areas I began talking about was narcissistic partners. But actually, as my private practice has flourished over the years, I know this also relates to narcissistic mothers, narcissistic bosses, family members, toxic family. So it's far bigger than what I began with. And I'm really proud to say that I help all manner of people with dilemmas with regards to narcissism and how best to help yourself. So what often underpins narcissistic relationships, abusive relationships, is that bond. You may feel like you've met your kindred spirit, the one. This one's different. Often there's an intense bond, a powerful bond together. And sometimes it can feel like it's difficult to explain it to anybody else. He gets you and you get them, she gets you, he gets you. And that bond is like a glue that can make it very difficult, a bit like treacle, to separate. Often the relationship in the intimate realm can be about an epic beginning. I've selected the image here of the opening ceremonies at the Olympics because it's a massive, epic beginning. Often a tremendous high that can sadly be followed by a tremendous low. And when we come down to earth, it can be a tremendous bump. So we need to be mindful. Overcoming narcissistic abuse, it's a mind game. And often people can be torn between how they feel, between the head and the heart. It's characterized by an emotionally charged relationship. Often I find it's our emotions that can make it very difficult to action what we sometimes intuitively know we need to do, but our emotions get in the way. And that can make it incredibly difficult to get out of those situations. And so one of the things we need to think about, Oliver, for people who are slightly maturer in age, Oliver Newton-John, I'll call her that for now, did a song called Let's Get Physical, Physical. And this is actually, if you caught yourself in a narcissistic abusive relationship, it's not about being emotional, it's about being logical. Yeah. And in some sense, that means that we have to defy our feelings. Otherwise, you will be a victim of your feelings. And that's not good for you. Sometimes, my friends, we must learn to love others from a distance. If you know what I'm saying, give me a heart, give me a like, give me some form of interaction so I know I'm not alone. It's far from easy out there. Yeah, it's not easy out there. So I've had a question. Yeah. Well, I'll get to the questions at the end, so I'll keep going. But if you want to put it in the chat, I'll come back to that at the chat, in the chat. I hope that's helpful to you. So what I want you to think about, if you are in a narcissistic abusive relationship with your mother, your brother, your sister, your cousin, your friend, your foe, and you're struggling, what is the emotion that makes it really difficult for you? What is the emotion that gets the best of you? Often in any manipulative relationship, we know control and manipulation will always involve guilt. And it's one of the reasons why on the Empaths Self-Protection Course, we focus on guilt. Many people caught in trying to overcome narcissistic abusive relationships struggle with guilt. And let's be having it. Guilt is an uncomfortable emotion. So if I can guilt trip you, it means that you're going to abandon what you were going to do and concede and do what I need for me. So we need to be mindful of guilt. If guilt cripples you and gets you to do what they want you to do. This is one of the reasons why overcoming narcissistic abuse requires logical strategies that you practice. It's always about practicing, developing your self-awareness and going out into the world and practicing. Now, sometimes, you know, if you're being manipulated and controlled, any changes you make are likely to be rebuffed, you're likely to be pushed against, you're highly likely to experience a backlash. You know what I'm talking about? Somebody write backlash in the chat. Yeah. The backlash can often be what makes us suspend change. And we go back to the uncomfortable place that we were trying to get out of. Backlash, sanctions, punishment are usually the tools of punishment if you are no longer doing what you've always done. So if you've decided that you no longer want to be that yes person that perpetually goes above and beyond, and when you need the love back, you'll end up just looking and can't see nobody, then expect the backlash, because people often, not in all circumstances, often people might have a lifestyle or need you to not know your value and worth because they leech from you. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It ain't easy out there. So one of the really important things with overcoming narcissistic abuse is about the importance of taking tiny actions. If you've done any of my courses, be it my Feel Loved course, Pain into Purpose, the Empath course, you'll know that I'm a massive fan of small wins. Small wins are incredibly important. Small wins give us victories. For many of us, we want change yesterday. We want change yesteryear. Now, if your idea of change is too big, you're going to feel overwhelmed by change. And so what I encourage people to think about is to take tiny, small steps, tiny changes. So tiny changes that enable you to protect yourself, that doesn't create a big alarm, but just small, tiny changes. Some of that might be we need to have a block party. Some of us need to be having a block party out there. Let's not pretend. Yeah. Some of us allow people access to us. And if you're struggling with your mental health, one of the things I talk about in my book, Why Love Hurts, is the importance of doing a phone audit. Many of us don't do phone audits, and you can be triggered by your phone. You need to think about who might you need to block, whose conversations you might need to archive. Some of us need to stop rereading all the lovely messages when it was good. It's not good for you. And if you don't want to delete, well, maybe you need to archive. Maybe you need to switch from WhatsApping, where you can see the person is online, 2 blue ticks. Maybe you need to start texting. These are just small actions that can help you. In addition, narcissistic individuals, you know, if you're still associating with, for example, if you're in an intimate relationship and you're still having relations with their mum, their brother, their sister, their crew, then ultimately you need to think about whether you're actually still tapped in and whether that's actually dangerous for you. Are you still tapped in, and is it dangerous for you? So if you're trying to pull away and you're still having contact with people that are associated, and sometimes we don't have choice. It's not always a choice thing. But sometimes we need to think about, do I need to distance myself? You may love the mother. You may love their father. However, you have to work out whether it's in the best interest, your well-being, in the best interest of your well-being, to stay in contact. I see a little state there. Well, absolutely. Somebody here has put they don't like if you don't conform. Absolutely not. Why would they? If people are having a lifestyle out of you, if people are using you, it works in their favor. It's interesting because sometimes people can tell you they want you to change, and then when you start to change, they have a problem. People have a problem when you change because it negatively impacts on them. Your change negatively impacts upon them. So do not expect victory bells and banners and you've done really well. Don't expect them to cheerlead your change. Your growth will not be helpful for others. Your growth may even see their demise, because if they've been leeching from you, having lifestyles off you, they will have an opposition to your growth. No two ways about it. So sadly, that's the sort of thing we need to learn to expect. Yeah. And one thing about, you know, when I'm working with my empath crew is helping people to be braced for that sanction, for that punishment, for the withdrawal of love, for the ridicule, because forewarned is forearmed. Yeah. So we have an awareness that this is likely to happen. If you're in such a relationship, we all know it is characterized by mind games. And often the people who are victims here often tend to overthink as well. So if you find yourself having an interaction and then chewing over and over and over it, my encouragement to you is to be aware of what you are allowing yourself you are putting yourself into. You need to be careful. Mind games only work if there are 2 players playing. If you don't want to play, don't go there. How do you learn to protect yourself? And that takes self-responsibility. You have to be develop your self-awareness to know when people are pulling you in. The relationship is also characterized by, in the long term, we need you to start doubting yourself. Doubting your self-doubt is crucial to overcoming, to narcissistic abusive relationships. Because if I can get you to doubt yourself, then you're going to have self-doubt means that you're going to believe in me. And this is why you end up manipulated and controlled, because that is the ultimate aim, to manipulate and control you, to make you not believe in yourself, to make you doubt yourself, even though you're like, but I swear I saw. It's one of the reasons why people can end up losing their sanity in these relationships, because you begin to, you just, in the end, you can't make a choice, you can't make a decision, everything you begin to doubt, and then you are under the full control of another human being, which is never good for you. Let's have a little quick look at that question there. Why do they threaten divorce or break up, etc., when you go to leave? They stop you in any way they can. That's a form of mind game. That's just another mind game, because they're trying to give you the bait. Often narcissistic abusive relationship is characterized by they'll constantly throw bait out at you. And if you take the bait, so when you leave, they didn't think you were leaving. It's called a threat, yeah? A threat, and they don't think that you will act upon it. So it's a mind game. It's a mind game. And you need to be really mindful of that. That takes its toll on your mental and physical health, because we know stress is a killer, yeah? We know that there's a relationship with stress and cancer, stress and IBS. Anyone out there got a bit of IBS? Trouble passing, or you're not eating? We know it has a profound impact on the body. Jaws, grinding of teeth, ulcers, cold sores, getting styes on your eyes. This is serious business, my people. It is not just psychological. It has an impact on your physical health too. The relationship has to be categorized by, you have to be guilt tripped, because they can't have you thinking for yourself. And if you start to think for yourself or do things that are in your own best interest, the guilt is always designed to get you where they want you to be. This is why one of the reasons on the Empaths Self-Protection Course, we focus on learning to deal with guilt. You'll also become down, you'll be low mood, there'll be low mood. There's no two ways about it. It's exhausting. The relationships are exhausting. And watch if you become incredibly apologetic, forever saying sorry. Sorry for your existence. Sorry, and sometimes you may find yourself thinking that you had a grievance and presenting the individual with a grievance, but with their way of turning things around, that gaslighting skill, you can end up being apologetic to them. So beware. We got another question here. They always become the person you fell in love with when you were about to leave, or they think they are losing you. Well, they do, as long as if you become aware of what they're doing. So if you can say, okay, when I'm leaving you now, you become Mr. Perfect. You know what it's like. That's when they behave themselves, might take you out and all of that stuff. Lasts for probably a week if you're lucky too. That can only work if you play the game, because if you know that's what they're doing and then you play along with it and you go along with it, and you know this is the umpteenth time they've done it to you, the question is, and I put this back to you, if you're colluding with it, you're going along with it, and that is where we hurt ourselves, because when it comes crashing down again, we feel like a fool. I know I felt like a fool, like an idiot for years. And I went silent and I went mute, and people didn't necessarily know, because I had to stop talking to friends and family about it, because everybody was like, leave the bugger, leave him. But like I said, that bond is sticky like glue. And so I continue to stay. So if you know that's what's going to happen, and it continuously happens time and time again in your relationship, what might you need to think about doing differently? One of the things with narcissists I find is when you call out their behavior, when you start to clock how they operate, it can mark the decline of the relationship, because they need you to be unaware of what they're doing. That's why empowered empaths are a massive problem. That's why they don't like me no more, right? Although they're still drawn to me, they don't like me. Empowered empaths are a threat to narcissists. They do not like when empaths can see their game and we call it out when it doesn't work. I hope that's helpful to you. Ultimately, the relationship is incredibly draining, physically, mentally, and emotionally. It's like when you have your sat nav on your phone, yeah, and you look and your battery was full and all of a sudden the battery dead. The relationship is a drain. And if you're one of those people that think you're going to try and outsmart them, good luck to you, because that is also another drain. It's one of the reasons why your mental health will deteriorate in these relationships. Your physical health will deteriorate in these relationships. You may put on weight, you may lose weight. Like I said, IBS, the grinding of teeth, all of these are factors that show up time and time and time again. And this is one of the reasons we need to be very, very mindful about what we allow in our worlds. And this is generic information, this presentation. Everybody's situation is different. And so it really depends on your situation. One of the things I'm always passionate about helping the empathic people who come to me for assistance with narcissistic abuse is what power do they have over you? What power does the narcissist have over you? My encouragement, they will use that power to squash and squeeze you. Especially if you start to change, especially. So we need to think about, so it's not like you just get up and go, because that's not wise. We have to be logical, think things through, potentially get professional help so that you become wise to what steps you might need to take should you need to leave. They'll use power, the car finance, the house, their kids, any tool that they can get to get you back under control is what they will use. It's not about the tool, be it the kids, be it the house, be it the car, be it the finance. It's about domination. And if you're no longer compliant, annihilation of you, often downplaying you, putting you down. This is all a part of it. Let me take a question here. Why do they play the victim so much? Every situation is somehow my fault and I'm the bad guy, which is not the reality at all. One of the benefits of playing the victim, we need to think about how beneficial that relationship, that behavior is to people who have narcissistic tendencies. Is often narcissists are drawn to highly empathic people who are empathic. So if I can make you feel sorry for me, I'm going to tap into your empathy. This is why empaths, my crew, we need to be very mindful about our empathy and how it can be used and abused. So when they want you to feel sorry for them, when they're doing the victim stance, that will be accompanied by poor me. That means they'll take no responsibility and they're highly likely to blame everybody else. If we fall for that, then it's just another form of manipulation to get us back where they need us to be. So the victim stance is designed to tap into your empathy and your capacity to feel sorry for them. So maybe this might be a strategy you could try when they're doing their victim thing. Okay, I could see you're feeling sorry for yourself. What do you think you need to do about your situation? That's putting it back on them, because many empathic people who are embroiled in these types of relationships often take disproportionate responsibility for fixing other people's problems. This is how we take out car loans, mortgages, take on debts, say yes when we want to say no, and end up putting ourselves in a very compromising position. So think about how you push back. They can only do the victim stance if you buy into the victim stance. If you don't buy into the victim stance, it doesn't work. When their tactics no longer work, you're going to see a different side of them, because one of the things narcissistic people tend to hate is being exposed. When their mind games and manipulation do not work and they are exposed, there is a tendency, be mindful, for you to experience their wrath and their anger. And this is why we need to be very mindful about how we handle the situation. Very, very mindful. And it's one of the reasons why people need to consider professional help. Trying to manage that on your own can be very, very difficult. It's not easy. One of the solutions is to believe in yourself. Now, you've probably seen this all over the shop. Believing in yourself ain't no joke, right? And often for many of us, before the narcissist even came into our life, we may well have had a shaky belief in ourselves. Yeah. So this believing in yourself can take time. And this is why we, on the Empaths Self-Protection Course, we big up small victories. Small victories are incredibly important, because if you don't believe in yourself, you believe in them. This is why, one of the reasons why people end up worshiping the narcissist. They become a godlike figure. And if you know, it's never good to worship humans. Narcissists need worshippers. And if you stop believing in them and you start to believe in yourself and make your own choices and decisions, you create a problem. You create a threat, because they need their disciples to believe in them. Another tactic is to consider how you can take back your power. Start to consider if they're using their power to squash you, if they're the breadwinner, potentially you might be the wife at home, you may not have an income. How can you start to think about how you get back your power? Some instances you might need to take many instances you might need to get legal help. But being disempowered and having them have the power over you is a natural part of this relationship. In addition, I think it's important I talk about, say, little about coercive control. And that's when it's gone to the far end of the spectrum, where you totally doubt yourself and you're dependent on them. It's almost like they have the remote control and you do whatever it is that they want and demand of you. Silly question. Silly question. Is it hereditary? Why would you like to know if it's hereditary? What is it? What is that? What is the benefit of you knowing that? Hereditary narcissism is considered to be a personality disorder. So it kind of brings into the debate the nature-nurture argument. But let's be honest, if you've had a very difficult parent, you may develop those traits. You can have someone come from a family and develop, and have a very difficult narcissistic parent, and they don't become narcissistic. They might become highly empathic. It's all down to the uniqueness of that individual and how they deal with stress and how they respond to trauma. So hereditary means, is it passed on in genes? I'm not necessarily a fan of that model, because I think it negates experience, how you've been brought up, how you've been loved. I'm more about the psychosocial model. So I would say it's a mix of both. I wouldn't necessarily say it's hereditary as such. It's a personality disorder. And if you've been exposed to an unnecessarily difficult parent growing up, then you're highly likely, as we all are, to inherit some of those behaviors. I hope that's helpful to you. Another way of beginning to take steps to overcome, is to start thinking about befriending guilt. Any abusive relationship will function on guilt, getting you to disbelieve yourself so that you can become controlled. If you don't react to guilt, if that guilt button that they love to press on is no longer active and working, then how else are they going to control you? This is one of the reasons why guilt is so important. Additionally, guilt is really important for people overcoming narcissistic abuse to understand. Is also one of the reasons we struggle with boundaries is because you feel guilty. You may know everything about boundaries, you've read all the books and had therapy, but you may struggle to put them into place. Often that can be because guilt gets the best of you. You feel bad or you feel sorry for them. One of the things that is characteristic of overcoming narcissistic abuse is usually the abused individuals has hope. They have a disproportionate hope, I would say a hopeless hope, that that person will change, that they'll go back to the epic beginning when things were great. And that living in hope is often what results in the years rolling by, us holding on, hoping. Or if they've been particularly disobedient, you might get a little sort of a trip out. You might get loved bombed. And depending on how low your self-esteem declines to, that love bombing may make you feel optimistic and hopeful that the relationship will develop again, that they'll behave themselves, that they worry that they'll lose you and now they're going to change. When the abused individual checks their hope or loses the hope that things will change, this can often be a nail in the coffin of the relationship. Doesn't mean you'll leave, but these relationships are characterized by someone believing that they will change. So what are the benefits of overcoming guilt? What are the benefits of you beginning to invest in yourself and your well-being? Is you begin to develop your self-awareness. The more you can develop your self-awareness, it will enable you to have control. Instead of constantly reacting, constantly saying yes, having control means that you will make considered choices, conscious choices, rather than just saying yes. But also on the Empaths Self-Protection Course, you get camaraderie. You realize that you're not alone and other people are also going through similar situations. And you know, somebody here tonight has asked about being a victim. Well, if you think about your own situation where you may well have been the victim of narcissistic abuse, if you can get to understand what's happened, why you've behaved the way you've behaved, you're likely to go from being a victim to feeling victorious over your situation. I know for me, the many years that I've worked on myself, and listen, let's be frank, there are no quick fixes here. This isn't this isn't Uber Eats, let's put it like that. It takes time, because when you enter into a narcissistic abusive relationship, they have capitalized on some form of insecurity that you already have. Some of us don't know what that is, but that's what we need to understand. What did they capitalize on? What did they tap into in you? That's a powerful thing to understand. So on the Empaths Self-Protection Course, like I said, it helps you to develop your logic, because these relationships are characterized by being emotional, us being up in our feelings. The relationships are characterized by an abuse of our empathy. And if you're tired of your empathy and your kindness being abused and used by others, then you need to develop ways to protect yourself. Now, as an empathic person myself, that doesn't result in me trying to be tough or hard, not at all. I want to remain empathic because that's my nature, but I must learn how to discern who is worthy of my empathy. Discernment is key. So on the course, you develop skills and tactics, logical tactics to help you manage your situation. You'll also learn in-depth strategies to help you develop your self-awareness. Self-awareness is key. Always encouraging you to think about how can you take responsibility. Remember, if narcissistic people blame other people, nothing's ever their fault. I'm a massive fan of self-responsibility. So what do we need to take responsibility for? Just like in some of the questions I've answered tonight, if we know that these are tactics they employ, if we go along with it when we're loved bombed and they come back and they say they're going to be brilliant, are we colluding with it? Why is it difficult for us? Why do we do it? And we know it's going to be the same thing again and again and again. I want to encourage you to think about, why do you keep going around in that vicious? So you just get curious, you know. Often one of the reasons why I know why I went round in circles was because I was fearful of change. I was petrified about what would happen. I had financial agreements that were in place for many years. Taking out car loans is not easy. So I was scared about, well, what would happen? How would I be able to afford it? I wouldn't be able to afford it. I'd have no money. And these are massive and real concerns for people. It's one of the reasons you need to get professional help. Some things we can't do on our own. And whilst, you know, self-help books have their place, while love hurts, it's not all the answers. Sometimes you need community. You need people to tap into, like-minded people to tap into. And that's exactly what we offer on the Empaths Self-Protection Course. And you realize, as you hear other people's stories, you think, I thought it was just me. So what you learn is different ways to overcome situation, scenarios, challenges where they put it on you. We start the course on the 7th of September. It's a 6-week online course. I deliver the course live, it's not pre-recorded. And again, we develop a rapport, we have a private WhatsApp group, you ask questions, we build that rapport together. You realize you're not alone. And I mean, if I think about the current group, they begin to assist and support each other in the group individually. That's camaraderie. That's bringing a group of strangers together with a like-minded situation and building those bonds. In addition, there's also a workbook that accompanies the 6-week course and that private WhatsApp group where you can get to me or access the support in the group. But most importantly, you can share your tiny victories. Sharing your victories is really important because often, sometimes for many of us, we have no one who's interested, because empathic people often are drawn to selfish people, and people may not be interested in the things that are progress for you. And I'm a massive fan of small wins because small wins build momentum. So the course today is £297. Normally it's £597, but our early bird is £397, but today it's £297 for the people that have signed up for this workshop. Use the code, take a picture of this, use the code EMPATH at the checkout, and you can go to my website, keyforchange/empath course, to book in your space. Now, one of the things I know about the people who I support, the empathic people who come to me for support because you've been used and abused and people are violating your kindness, is often we struggle when it comes to saying yes and investing in ourselves. Often it can be because of guilt. You may be scared you might find out, so we can have fears about our safety naturally. You might find that money is a block for you. So you'll be like, oh, well, I can't afford it. I always find that, you know, you find that you can often find the money for others, but do you struggle when it comes to you? Do you always find a block when it comes to investing in you? Time, okay, well, I'm really, really busy. One of the things is if you don't make time for yourself, it's one of the reasons you end up threadbare, you're exhausted, because where's the time for you? Sometimes you have to diarize, just like how you would an appointment, you have to diarize yourself and honor that. Often for many empathic people, we put everybody else first. So my question when the blocks come up for you is to ask yourself, really, what is that about? Or do you just have a habit of talking yourself out of investing in yourself? You happily go above and beyond for others, but when it comes to you, you say no. And at the same time, when you give love and you don't get it back, you get incredibly annoyed, but you will not put yourself first. The benefits of saying yes to you, just as I said yes to myself many years ago when I too was in a narcissistic abusive relationship, is small victories have a snowball effect. I now have my own business, Key for Change, and this business has been inspired by the abusive relationship I've been in. There's no two ways about it. I wanted to understand why I kept going back. I baffled myself. That led me to do an access course, which took me to do a degree in psychology. I then got a job in prisons where I worked for 8 years. And at the same time, I did a master's in person-centered psychotherapy because I just loved learning about human behavior. So you have no idea what saying yes to this course may have an impact for other aspects of your life, your dreams, your ambitions, the things you put on hold because you always say yes and put everybody else first. You can also begin to start to develop tactics and strategies for guilt. Guilt is a massive one for empathic people. And if, like me, you soon realize that often if you say yes, that the money will come. You will find a way. I remember when I signed up for my master's and they told me it was like $8,000 or something like that. And I was like, I'm going to do this and I'll find a way. A way was found. I took out a career development loan and you could pay it back 2 years after you qualified. That was absolutely fine. I also applied for hardship funding at my university and I was given a grant of £1,000. So sometimes say yes and a way will be found. Sometimes you're trying to use logic to work it all out. Sometimes, well, we're going to save the logic for the narcissists, but sometimes you need to say yes, step out in faith, and something good will happen. You can make a way. When you say yes to you, you're making a declaration to yourself that you matter. One of the factors that causes mental health problems, the depression, the anxiety, is that people do not honor their feelings. They don't honor their intuition. And so what do? Here's my intuition telling me this, telling me that, but I'm going to go against it. Yeah. And the more you go against that part of you is the more you're going to become disconnected from your authentic self. And the more disconnected you are from your authentic self, you're going to have your authentic self will decline, and the fake self, the false self, the sad self, the depressed self will become dominant. What do we do about that? That's where I assist you to begin to become realigned. There's nothing wrong with your emotions. Tap into your emotions. Trust a way can be found. So if you've got any questions, feel free to post, or if you want to, you can, I don't know if you can unmute on this particular format, but like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm here for the next 10 minutes. Feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the Empaths Self-Protection Course. I think I saw a hand go up, or did I see something in the chat? Absolutely. They're not liking it when you don't conform. Of course, they won't like it when you don't conform, because you need to be under that spell. You need to be, they need you under that spell. And so anytime your change happens, you're likely to experience a backlash. And that's what we need to be braced for, because then you're not just walking into it blind. You know, it's walking into it blind that can be the most earth shattering. Yeah. So it's helping you to develop your awareness. That's the key, developing your self-awareness so that you become more aware and make choices to protect yourself. Now, if you're considering, like, you're in this relationship and you're not sure how best to move forward, if you've gone as far as you can by yourself and the way forward is unclear, reach out, ask for help. You can sign up on the Key for Change website for a 15-minute call with myself to explore whatever your situation is, the dynamics that you're facing, and let me get my head working to assist you. Now, if any of you have any dilemmas right now, and you're thinking about, like, oh, I want to run it by Key. Feel free. Feel free, because the worst thing you can do is to stay by yourself, especially if you doubt yourself, the manipulations kicked in, and you're finding it difficult to connect with your own mind, your own thoughts, your own reactions. Often what that results in is it means your autonomy, your capacity to think for yourself has been compromised. And that makes you vulnerable. That makes you a victim to somebody else. And that is not great for your greatness. Ishigel Key, I can't see any more questions. So I'm going to bring tonight's mastermind class to a close. If you would like to schedule a call, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you on, a question's coming. There we go. Can a narcissist change? I can answer that, but before I do answer that, I get asked this question a lot. And I think one of the reasons why we ask, this is my hunch. You need to tell me if I'm right or wrong. It's just a hunch I have. We often want to know if the narcissist can change because we want them to change. That's why people always ask me, can they change? The reason because you've read far and wide that narcissists struggle to change. So a part of you knows this, the answer to this, but people still ask. And that's often because of the hope. We hope that they change. We hope that they will be different. And if they change, then you don't have to do the work on yourself either. We don't have to do the work. If they change, then you can just carry on in that relationship. So the reality is, yes, absolutely, narcissists can change. But they change when it has to be for their own agenda. Everything is about their agenda. So it has to be in their favor. So for people who have, like for therapy, tricky, pointless, I've often found, but it has to work in their favor. So they can change, absolutely. However, some of those traits and qualities can be very well entrenched. So I think the counter question I put to you is, why do you want them to change? Often because you want to hold on to the relationship. Often because we don't want to believe that they could be this wicked and cruel. Often because they can be so extremely nice and you see the greatness in them, you see the kindness in them, and you love the part of you that is evoked when they're being good. Yeah, remember, they're absolute charmers. Yeah, so when they're good, oh my God, it's absolutely wonderful, and you get a buzz out of that. However, it's short-lived. It's hard to maintain that because it's a mask. It's an absolute mask. So why do you want them to change? Let me know your answers. There you go. Hopeless hope. Hopeless hope is a real one. As long as you have hopeless hope, you are likely to hold on. When we begin to question our hope, to look at our hope, to not just be a victim to our hope, things can change. Absolutely, things can change. So if anyone here, I'm going to put the address, keyforchange.com. Feel free, go to the website, and this is where you will sign up. You can sign up for the course. Is that another question there? Where are we? Can a narcissist change? Do narcissistic people project their own poor behavior onto you? Are you saying that you believe them to be guilty of, and you know you're not what they are saying you are? Do narcissistic people project their own behavior onto you? Absolutely, they project onto other people. So one of the things that can happen, say if you're an empathic person, you begin to do the work on yourself and you start to challenge and you start to push back, depending on how manipulative the individual is that you're dealing with, they can start to, it's just another form of gaslighting. It's just another form of gaslighting, how they flip things and put it back on you. The issue is, if you're insecure in your thinking, if you doubt yourself, you'll get pulled in, you'll take the bait. And remember, they shapeshift, right? They adapt all the time. They need to find your weakness, your vulnerability, the chink in your armor to exploit. And if they can say that you're doing the bad things in order to bring them down, and if you believe that, if you doubt yourself and you believe that, or another thing my empathic people tend to do, if you start to over-explain yourself to justify yourself, yeah, then actually you've just given them a load of power, because they use that. Now you start to say, well, actually, no, I didn't do that because of this, that. It's one of the reasons why we need to stop making justifications, stop over explaining, and stop making stop making justifications, stop over explaining, and I can't remember the third one, MOJ. Yeah. But if we can begin to stop that and just say, okay, that's your opinion. That's a tactic there. Mark that down for yourself. Learn how to say, okay, that's your opinion. You don't have to believe their opinion. What matters is your opinion. But often what happens is they know how to pull you in. It's one of the reasons why no contact rules can be incredibly important. Because if you get to the point where their manipulation and turning water into wine is exhausting, and you are absolutely drained, upset, and your well-being is declining, it can be one of the reasons why people go no contact. You know, so when somebody, if you ever meet someone and they say they don't talk to their mum, and you're like, oh, why don't you talk to your mum? Sometimes there's very good reasons why people go no contact. Family members can be very difficult, and no contact can be a way to save your sanity. Yeah. And if they're that manipulative, I mean, I don't mess it. Listen, as much books as I've written, as much books as I've read, I don't do well around narcissistic individuals. I just don't do well. They discombobulate me. They're great at it. They've spent their entire lives doing it. So for many empathic people who try to find strategies, who still want to hold on to the relationship, that's absolutely fine. They can discombobulate you, make you doubt yourself, and they're just very difficult and tricky individuals. And that becomes exhausting. It's one of the reasons why your mental health declines, yeah, and your physical health will be impacted. I hope that is beneficial to you. But ultimately, the only person, as we know, who can change, can a narcissist change? The only person can change is yourself. That's the only person you can change. And when I think about my ex and where we're at now, they have just found another victim. That's all they do. They just find another victim. Yeah. They need somebody else who they can use and abuse, and they find someone else. So we need to be really mindful of that. And often those personality traits stay the same. Personality traits stay the same. And you'll notice maybe 10, 15 years, they're the same. They're the same. So I hope that's beneficial. And often, right, especially if you're in intimate relationships, they'll go for, and it may not seem like it, but they'll go for partners who have similar traits to you, often highly empathic, often caring professionals. They need caring professionals because we're not aware of the value of our empathy, because we don't understand, or in our society, we're not taught that having an empathic nature is something that needs to be protected. What happens is they trade on our empathy and our compassion, on our kindness and our niceness. They trade on it. So any person who you're replaced by is highly likely to have those same qualities as you. I hope that is beneficial to somebody out there. I've put in the chat the Key for Change website. Feel free to check that out. You can find my books, but fundamentally, you can also book for the Empaths Self-Protection Course. I look forward to seeing you there. I have another mastermind class scheduled for the next 2 weeks. I think that one might be on empaths and emotional eating. And that one is one of my favorites. I really do hope to see you there. If you need any further assistance, feel free to inbox me or schedule a call via the website. I wish you all good night. Thank you for turning up, and feel free to tell a friend about what we're doing here. I'm passionate about helping people to become aware of what is going on for them, so you can begin to start to make different choices to change your life. All the best. Good night.